welcome to the Next Best Picture podcast, where I am being joined by the legendary Fiona Shaw here to talk about Hot Milk. Fiona, thank you so much for your time here today.
Well, I am delighted to be on your show because the thought of it being the next best picture is just superb.
Well, hopefully audiences get a chance to see it. It is being released after having its world premiere at the Berlin International Film Festival earlier this year. And as you know, the independent film landscape is obviously a very, very tough one to transverse through today, whether it's domestically here in the US or internationally. It's hard making an independent feature film. And you were working with Rebecca here on her first directorial effort. Tell me what it was like working not just with her as director, but what drew you to her screenplay and this character, Rose?
Well, I've always admired Rebecca because she, of course, produced the first big play that was done at the National Theatre and the Olivier Theatre, written by a woman. So she's has a phenomenal reputation, both theatrically and filmically. And any film like Ida that she's been had anything to do with, she has acquitted herself so layeredly. I mean, she has got the ability to understand a kind of Shakespearean contradictions and scale of personality, scale of being, really. So she is also a very sensitive person. If you've spoken to her, you'll know that she's very sensitive, um, very delicate, really. Her mind is really so. Of course, I was thrilled when she first approached me about this. I mean, I'd read the novel and went on reading it, Deborah Levy's novel, but Rebecca has taken it and absolutely reworked some of it in a way that makes it A, more filmic, and B, of course, she changed the character of Rose a little bit, but the history of the women is the same, except that Rose is now Irish and has an Irish history, and that's very good.
Yeah, of course. The film grapples with themes that are present in the novel, whether it's caregiving or having autonomy. What themes would you say resonated with you the most outside of the prospect of working with Rebecca, of course, which it sounds to me like whatever role she presented you, you would have said yes to.
That's probably true. But that's a very good question because I think what you're saying about themes is that films are rarely just about the story of the film. I mean, obviously they're not. The story is the frame through which something that has nothing to do with the story is revealed. And I think in this case, it is mother and daughter. The mother has a sort of neurological or psychological inability to walk, except that she can sometimes. But the essence of it, and of course there's lots of other layers of mothers and daughters and all the stuff that we all know because we're all mothers, we're all daughters, we all understand these dynamics, we all understand that people do not try and squash their children, but they do squash their children. Um, um, they fuck you up, your mom and dad, they never mean to, but they do. I mean, it's so
Hmm.
in this instance, and I was saying to somebody that I quite enjoyed playing Rose because I played the obliviousness. I was just enjoying being the mother. I don't think the mother crosses her mind that she's doing any damage to the daughter. She just loves her and needs the daughter to look after her and really needs. But beyond all that, it's something to do with the vulnerability and bravery of humans who get caught in themselves. I think Rose gets caught in this in her own history, which isn't her fault. But it's not even the narrative of that. It's something about the nature, or it's an expression. The film is an expression of how vulnerable we all are. We all go to a Mediterranean somewhere. We all put our lives on hold. We all try and change something and get something back that we feel are missing. But it's never the thing you think is missing. It's something else. And that's in
Yeah.
that quite a classical tale of existential bewilderment.
Okay, I like that. So this illness that Rose has is ambiguous to the audience. How do you choose to play that then? Do you play it sincerely, though, as if she believes it for real, or do you play it as maybe she is manipulating the relationship dynamic?
I think there are various things. The syndrome exists. There are people who can't walk, and suddenly it comes upon them quite quickly,
Hmm.
brought on by something, a trauma of some kind. I spoke to one woman who has two children. She wasn't able to look after them for 2 years, but loved her children, but couldn't. then sometimes they can sometimes come out of it. They can get better. It can come back. Some people have it for years and get worse with it. So we are mysterious creatures, humans. It's not all physiological and it's not all psychological. It may be by then neurological. So we spoke to quite a few. So I do completely respect the syndrome.
Yeah.
And I think that in Rose's case, the daughter says, "Why didn't you tell me? You can walk." She said, "I don't want to raise your hopes." I think that's very true too. I don't want to raise your hopes that you think I can walk just because I walked today. And I
Mm.
think those sort of things happen with people all the time. People who give up alcohol or something say, I didn't, I tried not to, but I did, or something. And you don't want to raise anybody's hopes about your ability to recover from something. And that is an act of love. So it's quite complicated in that way.
Yeah.
So I don't think but the manipulation is, of course, that any mother who needs, their water changed or it's very nice to have company, particularly if it's your daughter and you're stopping her
Of
doing,
course.
but you're saying, "Why aren't you studying? You must get on with your life." But meanwhile, get me my water and get me my tablets and sit with me for the evening. Of course, those contradictions are in every relationship.
Yeah, I was telling Rebecca earlier, like we lost my grandmother about a year ago, and in the last year of her life, my family, my mother in particular, had to be her caregiver, and it was really, really tough. Even though, you want this person to either get better or stay with us for as long as possible, but it does put a real strain, and there's a real weight that is put upon that person. Like we're not certified doctors or nurses over here, and yet in those situations we're called upon to be. That's got to be so difficult.
Your
Have
grandmother
you?
was
Yeah.
Yeah, stealing. Your grandmother was stealing some of your mother's life for that time. She doesn't mean
Hmm.
to, doesn't intend to.
No.
Consequence of being frail and is that if you're dependent on somebody, that person is not living their full life.
Yeah.
They're, I think it also happens in marriages where there's a big age gap. It's fine for a
Hmm.
while. Suddenly it isn't.
Yeah, that's true. Although I suppose maybe that's the bargain that you enter
Yeah, yeah,
into when you, yeah,
yes, yes,
exactly.
indeed.
Um, So there's one scene in particular that stood out to me where Emma Mackey throws glass on the floor, it shatters. There's a close up then to your reaction. You look quite startled. Did you know that she was going to do that in that moment?
I must have known because it must have been in the script, but I no, I think it was very interesting because the mother stands suddenly.
Yes, she does. But your reaction to it was one where I was like, "Oh, that's a very genuine like jump scare moment." I wonder if she knew if Emma was going to do that or not.
I suppose I didn't necessarily know the second, but I think what is interesting about that is actually how you've got to click the subconscious, don't you? You've got to trick it. I mean, Emma does
Yes.
Emma's character, Sophia doesn't know she's doing that. But when she throws this, when she breaks the thing, the mother is released for a second from her habitual situation and suddenly stands and has the muscle to stand, the legs stand. Now that's very interesting that you have to kind of always trip into reality.
Mm, yeah. Speaking of which, not to get into spoiler territory, I'm just really curious for you. Do you have your own interpretation of what happens after the screen cuts to black, or have you not even thought about it?
Well, it's not my job to, but I do, of course, have a view. But I was saying to somebody, the amazing, so we mustn't spoil the story, but there's the ending could be one thing or another thing. And I watched the film twice and I thought it was one thing the first time. I thought it was the other thing the second time. So I think that's a good sign, actually. It could be
Yeah,
either.
I
So
agree.
you really don't know, and it's up to the viewer, or the mood you watch the film in, or the state of mind you're in, or something you missed, or something you heard well when you were watching it. That I don't think Rebecca has concluded it for you.
Yeah, I think that makes it even more powerful just to
Yeah,
leave it up
I
to
do
the
too.
audience to decide and choose their own
Yeah,
narrative.
it's shocking. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Did you get any rehearsal time for this? Like I said, I know it's an independent production. How did it work in terms of just working with the other actors?
I mean, we had plans, to go and live together in cottages. I mean, in apartments in Hackney, and of course, those things never happen. But when you're in a place like we were in Greece in Marathonos, you're so intensely together. You don't see anybody else all day except each other. Or in my case, I was often on my own because they were doing other scenes, and I stayed well out of it. I wanted to
Hmm.
just keep Rose's desolation, isolation to myself. So you're pretty, you're in it for the whole time that you're there. You're not. you're not running back and watching a TV series. You're kind of involved in it. So, it's a 4 week meditation while you make the film. And I very much enjoyed that. So we didn't rehearse. I mean, I did rehearse, of course, before I left. I had to rehearse the wheelchair items and the ailments. The syndrome comes often with pain and with a twitch, and I had to work on all of those things. So I had plenty physically to practice, and every day I practiced on my own. And
Yeah.
then that Emma would wheel me around so that we were very stuck together in a fused bond. And that I think helped in its awkwardness, its discomfort, but also its playfulness, its chattiness. And I stayed in the wheelchair all day, obviously, just to try and keep the world real for the crew as well as for ourselves.
Speaking of TV series, not to get too sidetracked here, I'm just curious. You were in the first season of Andor. Andor concluded its second season this year. It got amazing responses from everyone that I know who have seen it. Have you had a chance to see it? And what did you think about how it wrapped up?
I haven't seen the second season at
Oh, you
all.
need to see it. It's really, really well done. I was really shocked at how well Tony Gilroy has captured obviously political times that we're living in right now, but made it relevant to Star Wars of all things again.
I think good artists do have a sort of power of projection, don't they? They see ahead. And
Yes.
always has been the case, French revolutions, they've always been foretold by some writer. Les Liaisons Dangereuses, written before the French Revolution, absolutely presages the French Revolution. There are lots of there's a tendril that good writers have, and Tony Gilmore is a wonderful writer. And so I don't think it's that it's politically motivated; it's just observed, isn't it? And often
Hmm.
just ahead of the time. And I think certainly the first season was, and I'm looking forward to the second season, which everyone has been praising to me too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to your point about just like observant, brilliant writers, I mean, Rebecca, obviously in a class of her own, whether it's in theater, television, or film, she's conquered every industry that she has wanted to get into with her skill. Um, I imagine that if she were to call you up and offer you a role in something else, it would also be an instant yes.
Well, I keep asking her, I say, oh, when are you going to do? But of course, she has many, many things she has to go on writing, even though she, I think, loved directing that film. And I loved her direction. She was very clear, very sure. She would say, nope, I want this. I'd say, will I try that? Nope, just do this. So she was very, very clear and very grown up and not at all first-time director-ish, but she must have been on many sets in her life. So yeah, of course I would. I'd jump. But I think she hasn't anything for me at the minute. But maybe she'll write something next year, and I'll sit tight.
Maybe. Where can we see your work next, whether it's on television or on the big screen?
Well, obviously Hot Milk, and I've just opened a film called Echo Valley with Julianne
Yes.
Moore. But and I'm about to do various things. What's in the can that's coming up? I think those two things are opening, and then I'm going to start shooting various things this summer. I'm kind of slightly deciding actually which I'll do.
Hey, staying busy.
Stay in choosing, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Once
There's
in, of
nothing.
course, you're in, and then you have to start the work. I mean, once you start the work, you just have to work. So it's very hard work when you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, depending on the location too, that also has its perks, I imagine. So,
Not that many things are set in some sunny clime, very south of here. Not really, but a lot of set.
well, Fiona, this has been a pleasure for me. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
I
you
really
for your
appreciate
beautiful
it.
preparation. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.